You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
God bless America. Welcome to The Ranch, everybody. The podcast explores the people and happenings of Dry Creek Ranch, Eagle, and the greater Boise area. This is the fourth installment of the City Council interviews. This is the last one I was able to do. Now, the ground rules were, of course, no one knew what questions I was going to ask, and I did not publish any of the interviews until all of the other interviews were done. And by doing this, I was sure that there was going to be no contamination of information. I do greatly appreciate the candidates taking the time to come out and talk to me. Obviously, they did not have to. This podcast is brought to you by Old State Saloon. I love this spot. They just remodeled it a few months back. They have wonderful live music. They have wonderful beer on tap. And the setting itself is just fantastic. Go down, check it out, have a drink, and enjoy yourself like I always do at Old State Saloon. My guest today has quite a decorated background. He was in the armed services for some time. He really has a pragmatic air about him, and he's definitely a forward thinker as he's described in other articles. He also brought a really balanced view to the issues as we were talking, which I greatly appreciated. But I'll let you hear from him directly. Without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Craig Kwame. I think you can handle it. Thank you for coming, sir. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
And thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. So we're about a month and a week away from the election.
All right.
Did you see the town council meeting from last week on Tuesday?
I watched part of it, the part regarding the police contract, which was of most interest to me at the time.
Man, let me ask you something. How do we get the town council and the town administration to get past? It seems like it's like bickering siblings at this point, you know, and again, I'm not trying to put down any of the members. I know they're all working hard, but like the tension in the room and the way that communication is going back and forth, it doesn't, when I watched it, it's like, okay, this doesn't really instill confidence that there's this really, well-functioning, I mean, checks and balances, of course. You don't want everybody to agree on everything, but it's bordering on the level of real, like just interpersonal conflict. Does that make sense?
It does. And I definitely, I think there was an element in there. On one hand, the debate is good. You've got the city on the council and the mayor, trying to make sure that we're getting efficient services for the money that's being paid. And they certainly have the right to challenge those services and the money that's going out for the benefit of the citizens and the taxpayers. On the other hand, I think there was also a complicating factor involved with there, where you've got two mayoral candidates involved, and I think there might have been an attempt to, at least on one party, to, push and make it look like they would be maybe the more favorite candidate. And that was unfortunate part of that discussion, I thought. It was kind of an undertone of the whole thing, the whole debate that was going on. The other complicating thing on that particular issue too was that in my opinion, the parties involved, some of the parties involved in the letters and emails should not have risen to the public forum, and should have been done by the leadership of the city and leadership of the county sheriff. So I thought it was an unfortunate situation on that particular issue. To answer your question, how do you get things to work without all the bad feelings that get thrown into the deal? It just has to be better communication and fact-driven communication. So I think there needs to be a real attempt that, facts get brought out. Both parties have to look at those facts and say, okay, now that we have the real facts, now we can have a civil debate as to what's the best solution to the problem.
Fact-driven. I think that agree on the facts, agree on the situation, and then be as pragmatic as possible.
Right.
What specifically are you referring to with the letters and parties involved? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but my question is: you had the Charlie Baughan and the other members of the town council essentially crafting. I mean, it was like a press release, right? Like it was a big thing that went out onto Nextdoor, many volumes of it. Again, and I don't know the accuracy of the things they were saying, but my point is that they put out essentially like a letter talking about Council President Pike, and then there was also the letter from Wilkie, Chief Wilkie, in discussion of the negotiation. So which letter rising to the public are you specifically referring to?
The communication and I'm not going to get into the details because, to be quite frank, I don't know the real details of all the communication that went on. Right. But the letter was a result of some emails that got passed around.
The Chief Wilkie letter?
I think it was Chief Wilkie.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
His email or letter that he sent, which caused a response back. And I don't know who was behind writing those letters or who actually crafted them. You know, you never really know that. You see a signature at that, and that person's got to be responsible and accountable for what's pressed. Right. But to me, the whole thing should have been worked at staff levels, and then the public information should have been the agreement at the end, in terms of, and eventually there was agreement. I think it was a satisfactory agreement, and that's the way it should have been handled.
Understood. What do you think about public safety? Because that has become, I think public safety and Avamore have become the two, first off, they're obviously intimately connected. And they seem to be the two giant factors that are driving voter inquiry into the separate candidates. Like, what do people think about public safety? What do people think about bringing on Avamore? What are your thoughts on public safety? There's a number that obviously Councilman Pike keeps bringing up, the 1 per 1,000, which would necessitate, I think, something like 10 more officers over a certain amount of time. And he's I don't think he's indicated that he wants that today, but he's like, we need to work towards that number. And other people are saying, hey, the amount of law enforcement we have right now actually serves us very, very well, right? There's no arbitrary magic that comes from 1,000. I mean, you have to take into account density. You have to take into account surrounding areas. You have to take into account healthy populations, all kinds of things.
Demographics.
Like that. Yeah, 100%. That's what I'm saying. So what do you make of that? Do you think that the number, the 1 per 1,000, is something that does need to be a target on Eagle's radar? Or do you think that it's, hey, we need to let go of that arbitrary ratio and consider more of, hey, what is actually happening in our community? Do we need to step up, or are we sufficient?
Good question, and it's a good debate. I go back to what do the facts say, and I think the city council, the mayor, and the staff have done a pretty good job of laying out the facts in terms of, how many calls do the police get, how many real serious crimes do we get? How much time are they spending in the neighborhood versus, dealing with traffic? Who's responsible for what? So on one hand, what are the facts saying? On the other hand, is the perception of the citizens of the city. A lot of people that you talk to feel like the city's quite safe. There's others that feel like we need to have more police. And in some respects, perception is reality. So I think it has to be a fine balance that we make a good effort and communicate to the citizens. Here's what the facts are saying, and this is what it's going to cost to bring up that that ratio from 0.71 to 1, and it could impact our taxes, that sort of thing. And get that feedback. I don't know if the communication to all of the citizens was effective enough to avoid that kind of avoid that attitude that we don't have enough police. Personally, I think it's important, given the growth that's going on in the valley and the city. I think it's important we take a good look and really keep track of the trends in terms of the statistics in order to keep our police force level, on pace with the growth, and not let that lag behind. And, in some respects, it might be, pushing that ratio a little bit more to anticipate what might be happening, especially taking a look at what's going on around the other cities in the Treasure Valley and how that might impact Eagle. So I think that's important that we keep a real close look on that and make sure our police force is up to the numbers that we need as we grow, and not let it lag behind to where the statistics might say, hey, maybe we don't have enough police on our force right now.
Right. And one thing you said, communication with the citizens. This also seems to be something that people are really displeased with, right? From what I've understood of the people of Eagle and the frustrations they're having, they either feel like they're not being communicated with sufficiently enough, as in they're not receiving. They're like the Avamore, for instance, right? One of the things that people said is, well, we have to represent, the decision we make has to represent all of the people. And the response is, okay, show me the information that you have that we here don't have, where, 10,000 people are in favor of Avamore. Or, so again, not getting enough information from the city, or feeling like the message is not being heard, like the Avamore discussions where, hundreds of people show up and they're not in favor of it. What's something that could be done in your mind to improve that communication? Because obviously, I think it's in everybody's best interest that the citizenry of Eagle feel that they have effective communication. They can reach out to their elected officials. They're getting information that justifies maybe a hard decision, right? But they understand why that decision's being made.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This podcast is brought to you by MTUstudios.com. If you're looking to start a podcast or make content for any level of your business, MTU Studios can help. Just reach out to us today and we can start shooting tomorrow.
I feel, and also that we can always improve communication. If you look at a lot of the problems, the root cause of a lot of problems is something happened with the communication chain. So number one, we can always improve communication. Number two, there are a number of vehicles that citizens can take to stay informed. And I've learned this over the last several months. There's a number of tools out there. I mean, there's the city website. There's just the facts on the website. The mayor has a weekly meeting with all the citizens called Coffee with the Mayor at 9 o'clock on Wednesday mornings at City Hall. He'll brief you on current events and answer any question that gets asked of him. So, there's another. Of course, you have the recordings of the city council meetings and all the different official meetings that go on within the city. So people can review those if they can't attend in live or in person. So there are a number of tools. But so one thing is, how do you make the citizens aware of all those tools that are available to them?
Sure.
Okay. So and I think that could be done through a number of vehicles that could be sent out as flyers. It could be maybe a news article or one of the articles in the Eagle magazine. I think we really need to push that Eagle magazine to do a lot more communication for the citizens, not just on this store, that store, the new couple that moved in, and the new family. I think it could do a lot more in terms of informing the citizens of things that are actually going on in the city that are important to them, that are issues, and give them updates that way in a non-biased way, factual way.
You're speaking my language, Craig. This is exactly what I think we need. We need actual relevant content in an easily digestible thing. The problem I think that you will always have with legacy publications, and that's not to put down Eagle magazine, but like any magazine, you go to an elementary school, right? Where parents are standing around waiting for their kids. Or you go to a middle school where parents are in their cars, these long lines. Anywhere you see that, how many people do you see with a magazine in their hand? Like zero. Let me tell you, zero. So again, I think there is a need for some kind of relevant content like that. But a magazine is likely not it, because you got to go where people are, and where people are is not with their nose in a magazine. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, there needs to be some more centralized, non-biased, source that people can go to.
And another option is a digital platform.
Yeah, sure.
That gets sent out to all the citizens of Eagle.
Yes.
And they can look at some recent events. They can look up issues that are, in the limelight, or things that are upcoming. And
if only somebody had a podcast. Anyway.
Oh yeah. Good point.
You talked about Eagle expanding. Now, but again, just before we leave the concept of law enforcement, the topic, when we're talking about expanding, there were people looking at the Avamore agreement and saying, hey, look, we did expand Eagle's population, but not by that much, right? 1,000, 2,000, something like that. It's not that much. It wasn't even 10% of the city. But the geographic range we expanded is really significant. And it sounds like that was one of the big things pushing people for more than just 2 additional officers. Is your opinion with the geographic expansion very similar to what it sounds like it is with just the expanding population, which is, look, we got to look at the data, right? Like, how much crime is happening? How many emergencies are going down in the Avamore area? Yes, we expanded the geography, but Avamore is not like a crime-ridden area. It's not like we annexed in Oakland and all of a sudden half of the patrol cars on duty at any time will be going up there. What is your opinion with the relationship of that geographic expansion and your thoughts on expanding law enforcement?
I think you need to expand the security force and the emergency services along with the growth in the population at Avamore. As far as the geographic size of Avamore, Avamore is going to be like 18,000 acres, right? And
it's huge.
It's huge. Well, guess what? There's going to be like 6,000 to 8,000 acres that's going to be open space that Avamore will develop into the recreational area with the trails, and they will maintain the trails. And so I think you need to look at the geographic area that's not being populated by the homes a little separately. And it could be Eagle at one point has hired 2 bicycle policemen to cover the foothills area because they were having problems with that in the past. So now they've got that dedicated service. So I think you need to see, okay, in the unoccupied area of Avamore, that's the open space, if there starts to be a problem up there, then yes, maybe you do it, add additional policemen to go up there and do what's already being done in Eagle in its open spaces. But just to say, okay, because it's a much bigger geographical area, then we have to jack up the police, I don't agree with until the facts say we need them.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Now, Avamore in general. This is by far one of those things that people, have a wide variety of opinions about.
Yeah.
Let's say we have a magic wand. We go back, any number of months. You're making the call in the city council. Do you say, hey, Avamore is a good annexation and it's good for these reasons? Or do you say, hey, it might be good in the future, it might not be good at all, but either way, I don't think it's a good idea to do right now?
Interesting question. Let me throw in a footnote before I answer it, and that is
we don't have a magic wand. I mean, that's one of them.
We don't have a magic wand.
Sure.
I had nothing to do with annexing
Eagle
in. I think 10 years from now, 10, 15 years from now, the city and the people of Eagle are going to look at annexing Avamore in spite of their thoughts now, I think they're going to look at that as a very, very good move. And the reason I say that is that there's a tremendous amount of money being put into that development to develop it into a very, very nice community. I already mentioned the open space. That Avamore is going to develop trails, and they're going to maintain it. The development's going to maintain those trails, not the city per se. They're going to have very nice housing. They're going to have they've got very nice amenities starting. They're building a school up there, like K1 through 12, based on the Hillsdale College model, which is proving to be highly successful in the Fruitland area, where they have the similar school. The development is going to be putting in an underpass under 55, and eventually get rid of the stoplight there. That's stopping and going traffic going north up to McCall and those points north and coming back. There's talk about a trail possibly going up from Avamore up to Bogus Basin for recreational purposes. I think down the road it's going to be a very nice development, and I think it's important that Avamore is going to develop, whether it got brought into Eagle or not. It's going to develop, and it's in 3 counties. The development's in 3 counties. It's in Ada, Jim, and Boise County. I think the logic and the right logic is, do you want to not be able to control some of the things that are going on your borders? Or would you rather have an impact on those things and be able to control what's going around you? 2 of the larger areas of Avamore are in Jim County and Boise County, and those are not. Those are relatively poorer counties than Ada County. So if you didn't bring them into Eagle, then Avamore would be dealing with those counties, and there's a possibility that the counties would be approving whatever got presented to them in order to get the quick payout of the impact fees and the taxes. And it may not be what Eagle would necessarily want to see on their borders, because what happens on your borders, it's a law of physics and nature. Concentration diffuses to a lower concentration. High concentration goes to low concentration. So you might have some effects that you don't want, diffusing into your city, if you don't have the ability to control and manage it. So if I had a magic wand that said, do I not have an impact on how things are developed around me, or do I have a say in how they're developed around me? I'd go with the route I'd have a say with how things get developed around me, and which would lead to the answer of going ahead and annexing it in.
Gotcha.
People are going to be coming down from Avamore into Eagle and the other towns, regardless of whether it gets annexed or not. They're going to be using our roads, our stores, and everything. So, that's kind of and I've heard that that's one of the complaints is all these people are going to be coming down and using our roads and tearing up using our roads and streets and public services down there. But that's going to happen anyway, whether they were incorporated into the city or not.
Right. If they're going to Home Depot, they don't care that I go to Home Depot. I don't live in Eagle,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like I avoid going shopping or something in the city of Eagle because I'm 60 feet away from the border.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a great development. And, our job, if elected on city council and the mayor, our job will be to make sure that development plan is well managed and that it doesn't deviate and that it gets developed in the way that Eagle would like to see it get developed.
Are you concerned about the way that the surrounding cities are getting developed? Are you worried about Garden City, or are you worried about Meridian? Because, Meridian's obviously growing to 2,500 building permits a year or something cray-cray. They're growing really fast. And Garden City obviously is not a bad spot, but it's different, and it's laid out differently, and it has more, kind of industry and things of that nature. And again, I understand the idea. It's like, well, you want to have control over the surrounding areas, but no one really ever talks about the other areas that surround us and how they're developing, right? Is your opinion that, or what is your opinion on that?
Okay, just as kind of lead in to the answering that question, I've lived here 10 years, and I've learned that Eagle's a little bit unique in that it has a nice river going through it. It's got the foothills. It's got a small, quaint downtown area that people really like. It's got some beautiful developments throughout the city, very nice developments. So my vision and my desire would be to see Eagle continue to be that way and eventually end up, being considered the jewel or the gem of the Treasure Valley area in terms of the city or the cities. And I don't see that in the surrounding cities. I don't see that in Kuna. I don't see that in Nampa or Meridian. I see apartment buildings going up all over the place. I don't see a downtown that has real character, in my opinion. And that's my opinion. I'm not saying it could not be there. It's just, I don't see it. Whereas it pops out to me when I go to downtown Eagle that it's got a small, quaint character and environment about it. To answer your question, yeah, it concerns me what's going on around us because, again, high concentration of something will work its way towards the lower concentration of something. And I'm concerned. I don't want to see Eagle get in a situation where we're trying to shoehorn development in a number of units into every square foot of a development. I want to maintain a lot of open space with our developments, good quality projects that come in. And let the other cities, grow like they are and in the way they are.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, Meridian gets to do whatever Meridian wants. Speaking of growth, the city employees have grown considerably over the last 4 years, right? And the budget has grown as well. First off, do you think that that's appropriate considering the benefits the citizens get? And do you think that growing the local government is the answer to getting these benefits? So if it's getting us better landscaping, is it worth it by bringing on, these things, or should we leave more of that stuff to private industry?
Good question. I think as the city grows, the budget's going to have to grow with it to some extent.
Sure.
If you're going to double your population, you're going to have to increase your police force. You're going to have to increase your medical services, emergency services. You're going to have to increase in a number of areas. Sure. It does make sense as population goes up, the budget goes up.
And to be clear, I think we went from around 40 city employees to about 80. So it's essentially a doubling, right? Mm-hmm.
And so I think some of those 80 employees, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe some of those 80 employees are part-timers, seasonal employees.
Gotcha.
So,
probably not a lot of landscaping over the winter.
Right. So, you have to temper that number with that fact. What the city does do, and what I believe is necessary, is that the budget needs to be zero-based cost budgeting. In other words, every year, each department within the city needs to justify every dollar that they have in terms of the budget that they're requesting, and not just automatically jack the budget up like a certain percent that they feel they need to keep up with inflation or growth. They have to justify exactly what it is that they need that particular budget for, and do that on an annual basis. And if that's done, and it's done correctly, and the city council and the mayor challenge it and make those departments defend those budgets, then yes, I have no problem with the budget being increased to support that.
Man, I really appreciate that the perspective that you have to justify your budget. I have an older brother who is kind of had a hard time coming up through high school and stuff, but then got himself together. He was always very, very bright, just never really got himself together. But when he finally did, he like skyrocketed. So he ended up getting this PhD in neuroscience from Princeton.
Wow!
So it goes to Princeton.
Good for him.
Yeah, right. He's there for 6 years, and he was also doing statistics as well. So he ended up working for like Netflix, being like a data scientist and stuff. Whatever. I don't even know what he does. The point is, while he was at Princeton, they had this budget for additional equipment, right? They had these grants because obviously you're in this like massive research institute. You need stuff. Mm-hmm. So he hits me up one day and he's like, "Hey, do you need a computer?" I'm like, "Do I need no, like I have a computer," right? This is back when you had towers and bigger laptops and stuff. He's like, "Okay, well then I'll offer it to, our sister." I'm like, "Wait, what are you saying to me? I don't understand." So he had gotten this phenomenal laptop, something like $3,500, and this was like 2006, right? I mean, so it's a lot of money. This phenomenal laptop, and I'm like, "Wait, didn't you just get that last year?" He said, "Yeah, but we got this grant. Like, I got to get another one." Like, "What do you mean you got to get another one?" He said, "Well, look, here's how it works. Once you justify, the first time you justify the grant to whoever's giving you and you explain it to them, whatever you're going to use the money for." Mm-hmm. It's like, if we don't use all of that money the following year, then they retract, pull back the amount of money. They're like, "Well, you obviously don't need this." It's like, so we have to keep up with this. We have to keep buying new equipment, everything. And it's like, and if you don't, people get really mad at you because, like the department loses funding. And it's like, oh my God, that's insane, right? But he didn't care because it wasn't his money. And he was just, he's being told like, "Hey, you got to buy a new computer." And he was like, "Well, I guess I'm going to buy a new computer." And what a horrible way to do things. So I love the idea that it's like, look, if we got to grow, we got to grow, right? And if everybody's justifying, it's like, I have 3 refrigerators because I have 3 monster children, right? Like, and we go to Costco and we spend like $500. It's like, look, I don't know what to tell you. All the food is gone. We haven't thrown away anything. Like, we're not wasting groceries. Like, this is the cost of doing business at the Todd House. So, again, I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, it's the philosophy of you got to spend it or you're going to lose it. Right. And that's I've seen that in federal government because I used to work at the Idaho National Laboratory. There's some of that going on in past years. Saw it in the military. Yeah. There's that culture of you got to spend the money or you lose it.
Right.
So let's spend it on something that we don't need.
Right.
So
right, just nonsense, and there goes taxpayer dollars.
But if you defend every dollar every year, then you develop the culture. Okay, I'm being a good steward of the taxpayers' money.
Gotcha. Now, there are so many philosophies that I find present in Idaho that I absolutely love, like fiscal responsibility, just like what we're talking about, defending the dollar, mm-hmm. and smaller government. Talk to me about things like this, not things like, but let's talk about the sportsman park, right? The shooting range and the archery range, mm-hmm. because this is going to be something that it's essentially a business that will be run by the city for the citizens. And I'm not against having, a shooting range or archery park or things like that, but it does appear to be stepping into the private sector a little bit. Like, why is a city now running a business that's charging citizens and by the way, a monopoly, because now you can't have any more outdoor shooting ranges or archery ranges, right? Like, why not? If the city wants to have one, fine, but why make it illegal or prevent anyone else from making the exact same business? What are your thoughts on that? Because again, I don't think Idaho has a rich history of like, oh, let's privatize let's socialize industry. The city, the municipalities are going to own this business, but it does appear a little bit that way with the shooting range.
I agree that it could be run by private business, but on the other hand, if the government or the city is putting the money into the taxpayers' money into developing and building it and making sure it's safe, to me, wouldn't it make sense for the city to develop that knowledge base to know how it needs to be, how it should be run, or what are some of the restrictions, limitations, what can be done safely, what can't be done safely. Get that knowledge base, and then use that knowledge base to make a transition to eventually to a private sector to run it.
Oh, do you think that I may have missed that? Is that kind of the idea, which is let's build this, understand the nuances, and then essentially sell this asset to a private industry?
I don't know if that's the idea or not. Okay. That would be my idea.
It doesn't sound like a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah, let's make sure we know what's going on with this thing before we turn it over to the private sector.
Gotcha. So in your mind, then it's kind of, hey, if the opportunity arises and it's not, especially with something like gun safety, it's not a terrible idea for, the government, for instance, the city of Eagle to have a hand in that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, and yeah, I think the government, no project that gets built is 100% right. It has to get tweaked. It has to get broken in. It has to get wrung out, that sort of thing, before it becomes efficiently operated. And I don't have a problem with the city or the government, per se, to go through that process and make sure it's the optimum product. And then you could consider turning that over to, having the private sector run it.
Gotcha. Now we're on the topic of parks, apparently. We've made our way here somehow.
Parks, yes.
West Park, right? We had it. We sold it. Appears for a profit, about $6 million, it's my understanding. Mm-hmm. Going to the sports complex, right? So we went from a spot that was ready to go, but smaller, and perhaps some problems with it, to a larger spot farther away. What are your thoughts on this entire thing, right? Because we sold a smaller park for a much larger park, which will be awesome when it's done. Like, the sports complex sounds absolutely fantastic, but it is much larger, and to the tune of, well over $10 million to get this park going. It's also farther away from West Park, farther away in that it'll be more difficult to get to, but also not around neighbors, right? Which is a consideration that people have mentioned. Walk me through your thoughts on this. What do you think it was right to sell West Park in favor of a larger park farther away? Or do you think that we should have kept West Park and kind of worked with that and maybe held off on doing, the $15 million sports complex?
Well, you kind of answered my points for me in your question. And that would be, there was concerns about the smaller piece that got sold, in terms of the types of housing that was around it, being 1 or 2 acre lots, and maybe their privacy being disrupted by the sports park, where there's going to be a lot of activity, noise, possibly possibly a dog park being involved in that sort of thing.
If I may, and I'm sorry for interrupting. The reason I say that is not, I don't know that is and I would like your opinion. Do you think that's actually a valid reason? Because, for instance, former Mayor Ridgway did say that they had talked to all of the neighbors. They had discussed the issues. By and large, the neighbors didn't have a problem. He said, look, if you have a room full of 20 people, yeah, maybe a couple people aren't happy about it, but we worked with the neighbors. We were going to set up berms, so that there was no direct line of sight, and you'd also have noise dampening. He said it's also near the high school, so these are neighbors that, yeah, they might have 1 or 2 acres, but they're not 1 or 2 acres out in the middle of nowhere. They were having football games, they're having bands practice and things of that nature. So these were neighbors that were already accustomed to a certain level of ambient noise and event noise. Mm-hmm. So I didn't mean to feed you answers. What I'm trying to find out is, do you think that logic and reasoning behind those things, like, well, some of the neighbors might have been upset. It's like, okay, well, is that a valid reason? Or do you think that's something that could have very easily been overcome?
Oh, it could have been overcome. Yeah. With, the right engineered features or whatever that could have been overcome, sure, but why the heck not double, almost triple the size of your recreational area and do it at a profit for the city?
Well, it's not a net profit, right? So
No,
you
it's not.
do get the $6 million, but you're spending $15 million,
Right.
And it's my understanding that one of the big issues with increasing the police service was, a $300,000 annual bill. So it's kind of, somebody brought that up the other day, that like, how are we quarreling over $300,000 for adding 2 deputies, but then we go out and do like a $15 million sports complex.
Yeah, but the paying off that cost is not going to be the same way as paying for the police department, an increase in the police department. The paying back for the sports complex is going to be coming from the sports impact fees of the development around it. Those fees will go back to paying back the loan on the sports park.
They come from a different bucket of revenue.
Yeah. So in other words, it's not coming out of the budget per se. The annual budget is being paid back as lots get sold and the homes get built. The city gets the impact fees, and that money goes back to paying off the loan on the property.
Got you.
And the development of the sports park.
That makes perfect sense.
So yeah, to me that makes sense. So you triple the size, you get a regionally recognized sports park that's going to bring in tournaments. It's going to bring in a lot of activities, revenue for the city and the different leagues that it's going to run. It should be, from the plans I've seen, it's going to be a very high class type development. And so, number one, it's not really taking the money out of your pocket to pay back the loan. Number two, it's going to bring revenue into the city. And number three, when it does bring in revenue into the city with tournaments, with people from out of town, they're going to be staying at our hotels and shopping in our stores and going to our restaurants. I don't know if you could have put that type of facility on the 35-acre, please.
Got you. So it's not just providing recreation, but it's in your mind a magnet.
Yes.
A magnet that just goes to patronizing our businesses, our hotels, our restaurants, things of that nature as well.
Yeah, from what I've seen, this sports park is going to be very much in the line of what's available down in Reno, Nevada, St. George, Utah, which brings in tremendous amounts of money when they have big tournaments down there. Whether it be for the various sports, whether it be for baseball, softball, that sort of thing.
And I think it goes without saying, not that you want Eagle to be like Reno, Nevada.
Oh, true. You want.
You said Reno. Was like I started sweating. I was like, oh no.
No, I mean some of their athletic facilities that they have there.
When I was in high school, I went to water polo tournaments in Reno. Like we hit the Silver Legacy for the buffet and stuff. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But like, it's also Reno, right?
Right. Yeah.
Let's take the good aspects, maybe.
Yeah.
With that in mind, right? When you're talking about people coming in, staying in our hotels, eating at our restaurants, how do we get more of that, right? Because the local businesses really need to be able to support more people. You need to have more, hotels if you're going to do that closer by. You need to have, obviously restaurants, more restaurants, and with greater capacity and greater variety. Well, I'd like greater variety. I like Chinese.
Yeah,
it's like somebody open a Chinese place. That's really, really good. How do we continue expanding that commercial base in Eagle while one, still giving space to the mom and pop shops that everyone likes? I have not spoken to a single person that, is against mom and pops, but also keeping the design of this awesome, kind of quaint, spaced out city. How do we draw in more of that without losing the Eagle charm? Like you're saying, the gem.
Well, I think through the comprehensive plan, we need to be forward thinking in terms of anticipating that, and put the hotels a little out far enough to where it's not impacting negatively impacting the downtown quality and culture of the downtown area.
So don't put a courtyard right next to Rembrandt's.
No,
Not a good idea.
no,
Okay.
no. Or a big Hilton high rise over
Right.
Spitfire tacos.
So you're, again, space them out is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do we attract them? Because there's a large discussion. Oh man, like, so Home Depot, right? Which is a topic of many, many different things, right? Being sued by the city, and also a big box store, right? Like, I always feel guilty when I shop at Home Depot because, I should be going to Ace or something. There are all kinds of problems, right? With big box stores kind of impacting the mom and pop stores, but they also bring in an enormous amount of tax revenue, and they they sell a wide variety of things. How do we get more of those, right? Or do you want more big box stores? Do you feel like leave them in Meridian or somewhere else? It's not our jam.
I think there'll be Eagle is now, as I understand it, the second largest city in the state geographically, 60 square miles. Star is 8 square miles. So, the population's going to grow, and obviously the need for box stores, bigger box stores, brick and mortar stores, is going to be there. But I think the vision by the mayor and the current city council, which I would like to continue to promote, is that the box stores, put those on near the perimeter of the city, so that the downtown area can grow but stay quaint, and the residential areas stay within the inner side of the city. And by putting the big box stores on near the perimeters of the city, like Fred Meyer up on the corner of Linder and Chinden, then people in the city go out to the stores and they come back in without having to leave the city. Plus, by having those big box stores on the perimeter of the city, then the citizens from other towns can come to those stores without having to run all their traffic through the downtown Eagle area or through the residential areas.
Makes sense. With the expanding population, as you're saying, population is going to continue to grow. Mm-hmm. What part of that population growth and accommodating for that is in apartments? And what part of it is in owned products like townhouses and, single family dwellings? Is there a place in your mind where we need to take into account more apartments, or do you think that it's, hey, look, if you want an apartment, if you don't want to own something, you're probably going to have to look elsewhere?
Mm-hmm. My brother's a builder down in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we had a good discussion about that. Apartments are needed in a city. I think housing for all income levels is needed. And not only are apartments, ready for the people that can't afford to buy, but there are people that make the choice that they no longer want to try to maintain a big house. And it's more convenient for them given age or, whatever personal choices that they have to be in an apartment or a townhouse or a condominium or something like that. So I think there is a need for all of those different types of dwellings, okay, going all the way from apartments up to, nice houses on large lots type thing. Not the problem or the dilemma is that you want to make sure it's balanced, right? Okay, and right now Eagle has 1,100 or 1,000 apartment units that haven't even broke ground yet, that have been approved that haven't even broke ground yet. So I think you need to let the market drive that, the free market drive that.
Gotcha.
But on the other hand, in support of things that my platform is is if we do have apartments, I want to see a real quality product put in that has a lot of open space that provides amenities for. I need to bring this over.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that has a lot of amenities for the the residents of apartments or the townhomes, and has that open space and where people can get out and recreate and enjoy even around their apartment complexes, which I don't see in a lot of cases around here. So
and again, I love the free market, right? Mm-hmm. It sounds like your position is, look, we already have a lot of projects approved in the apartment domain. Mm-hmm. Let the free market determine when it's the right time to build those, and let's make sure that they're built to a certain standard that's we've all come to expect from Eagle. Great amenities, beautiful look. Don't give me a giant box with a flat roof. Give me something that's nice. That
don't give me a barracks looking apartment complex.
Right. That would not be. There's some. So I grew up in Northern California, and then I went to Berkeley. I don't care for Berkeley at all. I appreciate the education, but I don't care for the spot at all. And kicked around Berkeley and Oakland for some time. And man, some of the apartment complexes literally are just a rectangular solid painted all white, and of course dirty. Mm-hmm. They're just dirty and nasty. But it's like, who came up with that design? It's like a stucco ice cube. It just looks terrible. Yeah. Bars on the windows and everything. You're like,
really?
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's terrible. I mean, if you've never been, let me tell you, don't go, because you're not missing out on anything. Two, you might not come back. It's not. It's not a spot you want to hang out. Okay, that makes sense to me. When you brought up Linder, I have a friend who just moved from this neighborhood over to off Linder, and he says that it's literally a used car parking lot on Linder at the right time. Like getting out of his little development to turn onto Linder, he's like, it'll take me 15 minutes. There are 3 cars in front of me. We can't make a left turn. It's just a parking lot. What do we do to start alleviating traffic within the Eagle borders and get, those main arteries flowing again? So, again, with growth, you have more taxations on restaurants and services and stuff. You want to go to Crave, or you want to go somewhere it's it's hard to get a reservation, but physically getting around is becoming a little bit difficult. What do we do there?
Well, the roads and the highways are kind of outside the purview of the city, the city's impact. What we can do is make sure that ITD and ACHD knows what our needs are, and try to influence that we get a little bit higher priority on getting some of those things in place that would help alleviate it. And I think one thing that would be nice is if, once a area gets really populated, and personally, I think Treasure Valley's reaching the point where they kind of need a green belt around it, like some of these bigger cities, because the growth that I'm seeing that's anticipated in the Treasure Valley is phenomenal from what it is even now. Like when we get into the 2030s, the population in the area is going to be fantastic. So we could kind of try and put the roads or encourage that the roads be put in such a way that would assimilate something like a green belt, and we have pieces of it in place. We have 44 that goes east and west. We have 16 that goes north and south, and we have 55 now. Now we need to get something that goes across the north end of the city. And then also one thing that is being pushed and being talked about is trying to extend 55 where it meets up with 44
through the cement area.
Yeah, extend that going south, which would help. And then also as we do more developments, or as more developments happen within the city, try to think a little bit ahead of the game in terms of the infrastructure and the roads that get put in, and see if we can help with rerouting or getting better flow of traffic going both east and west and north and south.
I was going to ask, what can we do, or is it possible to ask developers as they continue developing, hey, you got to improve the road here, or you got to work with ACHD and do so. I mean, you're putting in 500 homes or, 100 homes. Like, you guys got to make a portion of this property another lane for the street, or you got to have, underpasses or lights or things like that. Is that something that is within the control of the city?
Yes. Yeah.
So we can essentially ask, as more people are developing and moving in, it's like, hey, you want to do 200 houses? Love it. They look great. Awesome. You're going to have to fix the roads around it so that the people can get in and out of here without further impacting the roads that surround it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's studies that get done. So a developer comes in, wants to put in 500 houses here, but the comp plan says, okay, well, the area around that and the area next to it that isn't developed yet is a zone for this. So anticipate another 500 to 1,000 homes over in this. So we need to think about, okay, what kind of traffic are we going to get, and what type of road network do we need to handle that, so we don't end up with, on the street parking lots at rush hour. And encourage those developers to, they need to pitch in and help with that, making those improvements.
Gotcha. You're running, right? And as such, there has to be something, I would imagine, that you feel like, all right, the city hasn't done this quite right, or they're doing an all right job, but I could add to that, right, with my knowledge base and experience. What are those things?
There's first of all is the in terms of the growth, the building and the growth. I'm not real crazy about seeing apartments all the time right along these highways and these busy streets, where I think it'd be more appropriate to have commercial properties, inviting stores, inviting restaurants, where the people want to stop and eat and shop, and then and then go home or go on their way.
What are areas that have apartments like that in Eagle?
Oh,
or are you just saying hypothetically, like you don't like that idea?
Well, both hypothetically and also, take for instance the corner of 44 and Linder. That could have been a great commercial area. I would think, given the traffic that goes north and south and east and west on that. But now we have a big apartment complex there. One thing, the storage units, that the new storage unit that's being built in Eagle on 44, that's going to be a storage unit. It's going to have a nice facade on it to make it look attractive, but again, that could have been a place where you could have had some inviting commercial property that people could stop in, and in the storage units and the apartments, they could be put out, in other sections of the city that would not be impacting those inviting places. So that's one area. The other area goes back to the communication. There seems to be a lot of, and I think it's a minority voice, but there seems to be a lot of bad feelings towards what's going on in the city. And I think if we had better communication with folks like that, and again, go back to the the factual basis, what are the real facts associated with an issue, I think I'd like to see us help resolve that, or improve on that.
That's actually something that I'm really worried about personally. Just not just with Eagle, but everywhere, which is there seems to be the capacity for people to communicate very, very effectively, like shallow, misleading things on, for instance, Facebook or Nextdoor. Like, these are not great areas for a city to engage and like defend itself.
Yeah.
And especially the difficulty with getting the facts, like you're saying, like let's look at the facts. Let's look at actually what's going on. It's always very difficult, right? It's not, these things are not usually very compelling or interesting. And, even you're logging into like a city hall meeting, it's kind of like, gosh, man, 4 hours, you got to sift through and find like the 60 seconds. So I very much appreciate that. Obviously, I love communication, and I love having things said clearly and provided very self-evidently to people. So yeah, I think that would be great. There does definitely seem to be a level of distrust and frustration with the citizenry.
Yeah, and I would like to see us work harder on trying to relieve that, because it's a negative impact on things.
Here's something for you. It appears that there were surveys done for instance, shooting range by the city to find out what the populace wanted, and other things like that. But there wasn't one done for Avamore. Do you think it would be valuable to put something in place where it's kind of like, look, we have to, if we're going to do another thing like Avamore, if we're going to make any large decisions like that, we send out a survey and just find out what people think. Not that it has to be the end all, right? It's like, all right, people are going to vote. Whatever the survey says, that's what we do. But at least taking that into consideration so people have more data. The citizenry know, like the people that showed up against Avamore. They're like, all right, well, 300 of us showed up today and we were against Avamore. But they have a survey where it's like 5,000 people and, 4,500 of them like Avamore. So we're in the vocal minority. That helps explain things to people. Do you think that would be a valuable thing to just kind of say, hey, we're big enough now and these things impact enough people that there should be a survey that goes out for every large decision like this?
Yeah, well, let me answer it this way, and I'm not going to directly answer that question.
Okay.
What I'm going to say is that the more information you have, the better decision you can come up with eventually. And a survey can be very helpful in terms of, getting ideas why people are for it, why they're against it. It can help with giving the magnitude of, the sentiment one way or another. So I think it's a very good instrument for purposes like that, so that once you have that information, then you can decide, okay, this particular area we need to better attack in terms of communication. This area we need to attack and ferret this out with the public and that sort of thing. Sometimes the problem with a survey is, or I can foresee the problem with the survey is that people that may participate in the survey and the eventual decision goes, not in their favor, then they claim that, no, you're not listening to us and you ignored us and that sort of thing. So I think it has to be, carefully treated and managed with what the survey is going to do, and explain, that it's information gathering only, and not going to be the final word on the decision making.
Do you think that's unique to a survey, or do you think that that's at all levels of civic participation? Like anytime somebody makes their voice heard, the people that physically showed up and said, we don't want Avamore,
yeah,
right, they feel like their voice wasn't heard.
Right.
The people that were in favor of it were like, haha, my voice is heard. So regardless of the mechanism for drawing on public sentiment, the people that are on the losing end of it will always feel that way, right?
Right. Well, yes and no. It depends on how the information that's all brought in is then sent back out. In terms of did we listen to it, and the reason the decision goes against you is because this, and this, as opposed to, well, we took your information but we decided to go this way. Right.
And again, I think that comes back to your communication, which is, look, especially when you have a difficult decision, every little piece of consideration needs to be laid out on the table, so that it's like, listen, I know you don't like this, but from a city standpoint or a long-term standpoint or a development standpoint or all of these things, this is how you will directly benefit, even though, as you mentioned, no decision is perfect. Right? No project is perfect. There's nothing that's like, nobody will dissent. I mean, there are just going to be some people like that for whatever reason just don't like it.
Right.
Is there anything else you want to express? We've talked about a lot of things: law enforcement, development. Oh, I almost forgot, the senior center. It seems that the city has, suing the senior center. Then you have the Home Depot issue, and then the Arts Commission was kind of a fiasco. what are your thoughts on, let's just start with the senior center. What are your thoughts on how this has been handled?
Well, I understand what happened there, why the city felt it needed to take it over.
Okay,
Take
can you
over.
explain that to me? Because I haven't quite wrapped my head around this.
And this is my understanding of it.
Sure.
The senior center was being run by a nonprofit organization. The city of Eagle owned the building and rented the building to the nonprofit organization for $1 a year. There was an accident that happened, that the complications of one of the patrons was riding in the van and toppled over and hit his head. And the complications, he passed away. And then 5 or 6 weeks later, and there was another incident where there was an accident of a rider in the van, got injured, but was not a fatality. So apparently there was a claim, or a tort suit filed, that a $5 million tort claim filed, which is going to lead to possibly a pretty big lawsuit involving potentially the transportation company, the nonprofit organization running the senior center, and the city of Eagle. And the nonprofit organization had been saying that they were not in that great a shape financially due to some other things that had happened in the recent past during COVID. And so the city felt, what would happen if the nonprofit organization suddenly came in and said, given this lawsuit and our situation, we're gonna have to shut our doors, and that would leave the city with a big problem of having a senior center that nobody's operating. So the city made the decision. Okay, in that eventuality, wouldn't it make sense to take the senior center over and run it ourselves? And that, I guess I understand that's kind of was some of the logic there involved with doing that.
But they relocated the senior center to a church. That's my understanding, right? So the city didn't actually take over the nonprofit or the organization or the workings of the senior center. They just booted them out of the physical building and then filed a lawsuit to recoup, I believe, $150,000 that was given in COVID funds.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and so the city decided to take the building back and then run that building as the senior center themselves under the recreation department.
Oh, that's new information to me.
Yeah.
So it's the city's intention of essentially socializing. I know that's a bad word, but essentially taking the senior center operations under their wing, and so now the city will sponsor, run, and do all of the things the senior center was doing.
Yeah, and then the nonprofit organization that was running it, they've, like you indicated, they moved to the church, and they're operating like they were before, I guess, is one way of putting it.
Gotcha.
But, and since I've learned, since I've decided to run, I've been looking into different things. The senior center, and Councilwoman Helen Russell has been the liaison between the senior center and the and the city, the city council.
I thought it was Councilman Pike.
No, Helen Russell is doing it now.
My apologies. Sorry, keep going. I keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's all right. And I've gone there and looked at it, and I really feel like, okay, it's a kind of to me it's kind of a Spartan facility. It's not a real cozy, comfortable type environment.
It's not like this, Craig.
No,
we're comfy in here.
It's not like this. And I want to see a senior center that's a little bit more better furnished and a little bit more inviting for the seniors to come in and, if nothing else, just come sit down and sit in a couple nice chairs and have a conversation with their buddies, or get involved in a card game or read a book. And you just don't get that warm, cozy feeling in there right now. So I think the city would have the ability to make improvements to the building itself, make improvements to the programs and services offered, and help increase the patronage that's in there. Because right now we have like 7,000 seniors in the city of Eagle, roughly 7,000. And that number is going to go up. And I would like to see a senior center that everybody, all of our seniors, would say, "Hey, let's run down the senior center and let's play some cards or sit down and have a debate about national politics or something like that." Where it's, you just don't get that feeling that that's the kind of place you want to go to right now to do that.
Man, okay, love that vision, great. But the last thing you said, debate about national politics, like what an interesting concept. It seems like something of a generation past where you could sit down with somebody who, say, disagrees with you or is on a different, and we're just playing cards and debating politics. Yeah. It's like, yeah, drink some coffee, have an argument, and just get on with your day.
Right.
I would really, man, I just feel like the avenue for debate and communication like that in this generation is just, the potential for that's getting smaller and smaller. It's so funny you said that. It's like, you can sit down and play cards and like debate things, and we all leave and we're friends and I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. Or play a game of chess, whatever.
I love chess. Big fan. Big chess guy. Checkers is great too, but not as fun. Well, okay, Craig, I've had you here for a long time. Is there anything else that you would like to express or say, or something that you want to touch on that we may have missed?
No, not on the issues. I would just say that kind of a, as far as a self-promotional comment, and that would be, given my experience, I'm a very objective person. I look at all sides of an issue before I'll make a decision on something, and I think I can bring that experience, and I think that would help me be a good councilman on this Eagle City Council. And I'm a team builder. I try to make good decisions and get everybody's input on it, and build consensus on decision making, and I think that too would help. So, yeah,
especially, look, let's all work together.
Yeah,
there's room for us to disagree. There's room for everybody to disagree, but as long as we're all trying to push the issue,
and we can disagree without doing it in a negative manner, which I'd like to see us work on getting rid of.
Yeah, I mean that's what we started this conversation with. Yeah. Like let's bring it back. Yeah. Well, thank you for running. Thank you for what you're doing. Thanks for putting yourself out there. I don't pretend for a second that it's easy, and I'm sure you're catching a lot of flack all over the place. So thank you for what you're doing. Thanks for bringing these issues to the table.
All right. Well, thank you for inviting me, and I've enjoyed the conversation.
Good time. Thanks. This podcast is brought to you by MTUstudios.com. If you are looking to start a podcast or make content for any level of your business, MTU Studios can help. Just reach out to us today and we can start shooting tomorrow.